order. And that means we need adoption, not just by individuals, but by businesses and nation states. And so the goal here is not to be a fringe asset, it's to fix the concept of money itself, and that can only happen when Bitcoin integrates into the broader financial system. And that can only happen when. And that's why the government also, it's inevitable, they will be involved. And that's why the government also, it's inevitable, they will be involved.
I guess I'll finish by putting some numbers on this, right? So in this gold versus Bitcoin kind of comparison that has this geopolitical overlay, if you sort of add up, you know, back of the envelope, total America's holdings of gold, from individuals to the gold ETFs to America's gold reserves, 8,100 tons, we have about 8 to 10% of the above ground gold stock. We don't exactly know how much China has, but that's probably an upper bound. If you actually do the same analysis for Bitcoin, we have between 30 and 40%, depending on how you measure it, of total available Bitcoin supply. And so that's like a 3 to 4 to 1 sort of asymmetric advantage that America has in a world where hard assets are going to be remonetized. It's just what's going to happen, right? The sovereigns of the world collectively are going to have to devalue their currencies, and their debt markets are going to have to take it in the shins. And so America has to ask itself, like, do we win relative to our rivals if gold wins or if Bitcoin wins? And we have a 4 to 1 advantage right now. And I think we should secure that advantage and, you know, bring the world to a Bitcoin era while supporting the development of open source tools that allow the rest of the world to participate in the network.
Yeah, it's not even just about the SBR. Fred, you touched on transactability, right? America already is the clear leader in mining and mind share and holding in technology for Bitcoin, and we need not squander it. Thank you so much, Matthew Siegel from Van Eck, Matt Pines from the Bitcoin Policy Institute, and Fred Thiel from Mara. Everybody enjoy the conference. Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthew Siegel from Van Eck, Matt Pines from the Bitcoin Policy Institute, and Fred Thiel from Mara. Everybody enjoy the conference. Let's go.
Thank you.
Wow, what an incredible panel. Our first panel of today. What an incredible panel, our first panel.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk. We are here presented by Mara. We just heard from the chairman of Mara, or the CEO of Mara, Fred Thiel, from the main stage talking about funding the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I'm here to talk about this with none other than Marty Bent, managing partner at 1031 and founder of TFTC, Pierre Rochard, host of the Bitcoin for Corporations show, and Eric Kaysen, author of Crypto Sovereignty. Marty, let me start with you, talking about Bitcoin as the backbone of the global financial system, ways for the United States to acquire Bitcoin. In your opinion, what would be the best way for the United States to go about this?
I think I'm partial towards bit bonds. I think the executive order was around seizing Bitcoin, or keeping seized Bitcoin in the reserve. I think that creates a perverse incentive. If you're going to build a strategic reserve in a budget neutral way, I think the idea of issuing debt and underlying a portion of that debt with Bitcoin at a lower yield makes a lot more sense to me. It makes me more comfortable as a Bitcoiner.
Fair enough. Pierre?
Yeah, I agree with Marty. I think that the opportunities to seize more Bitcoin are going to become more and more limited as criminals understand how to secure their private keys. And on top of that, if we look at the other assets the government holds, there's a massive opportunity to sell the gold that's in Fort Knox and actually put it to use. And when we hear the gold proponents talk about the utility of gold, they're right. The gold should be used as jewelry. It should be used in electronics. It should be used in dentistry. And we need to stop having it collect dust in Fort Knox. And so when we look at next year, it's going to be the 250th anniversary of this great nation. And what better way to commemorate that than to create a line of jewelry that, honoring those who fought the American Revolution and using the gold from Fort Knox for its real utility, and then take all those proceeds, put it into Bitcoin.
Using the gold, holding on, using the gold, holding on to Bitcoin. Eric, over to you. You wrote an amazing book about how Bitcoin empowers the individual. What does it make you feel like to hear all this talk of governments adopting Bitcoin, corporate treasuries, all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I just want to start with saying fuck the state. It's a hateful apparatus that wants to kill you and steal your money. And the fact that both the red party and the blue party, they both want to steal a certain amount of your wealth and redistribute to other people. And inviting them into Bitcoin, I think, is actually kind of a dangerous idea considering how reckless and idiotic that they've been with the current financial system. So, tell you what, if they can balance the budget and pay off the debt, I'd be open to having them trying to manage a Bitcoin treasury. But I feel like they should be mature enough with their own finances to actually sort of pay off all of the debt that they've accrued before they start fucking around with the Bitcoin treasury. But you know what I think would be incredible is everybody should be on their own Bitcoin treasury and their own Bitcoin standard. You don't need the nation state to tell you to do it. You can just own Bitcoin on your own self-sovereignly, and they can't steal it from you.
Incredible perspective from Eric. Very, very important. Marty, you touched on this earlier. So we have a lot of these new stocks, corporate treasuries, people buying MicroStrategy. We have Nakamoto, sponsor for the conference here. What's the message to maybe new Bitcoiners, people who are interested in investing in Bitcoin, speaking to this idea that Eric just talked about, this idea of self-sovereignty?
Yeah, I completely agree with Eric. The real strategic Bitcoin reserve is a Bitcoin held in individual wallets. And to anybody out there new to Bitcoin, seeing this publicly traded treasury strategy, keep it simple, stupid. Stay humble, stack sats.
Boom.
You can download Strike, you can download River, Cash App, whatever it may be. Just buy Bitcoin directly and then learn how to secure it properly and create your own strategic Bitcoin reserve. That is how America will succeed in the long run.
Fair enough. Pierre, what do you say to people who say, well, it's too hard. I don't want that responsibility of managing my private keys.
Well, the products are getting better and better every year, so it is getting easier and easier. And I also think that when we look at the institutional adoption, the logic described at the individual level is the exact same reasons why a corporation and why a government should hold Bitcoin as well. And with regards to Eric's point about the national debt, I think the only realistic path is to outgrow that national debt. And the only asset that is going to maximize the growth rate over the long term is Bitcoin. And so to me, Bitcoin is a way to bail out the government, bail out the financial system, so that everybody who is a normal civilian that is relying on that, on the benefits, right, from these entities, whether it's insurance companies, pension funds, or Social Security, that they get made whole. And so I think that's why it's really important to have a smooth, gradual transition to Bitcoin by adopting these reserve policies for all these different entities.
Okay, excellent. Eric, what would you say to people who are saying, you got into Bitcoin early, many, many years ago, you were early at Coinbase, you're a holder from early on. People might, Pierre's talking about this growth that we're going to experience in Bitcoin. What would you say to people who say, I'm too late, right? Bitcoin it's at $100,000, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, it was trading at three-digit figures, $100 or something along those lines. What message would you give those listeners?
You either get it or you don't. I don't have the time to explain. And I really would love to try, but the sincere answer is most people aren't actually interested in answering the question in a meaningful way, and they're much more, they want to know how are they going to get more of the dollars. And this is the exact problem. You don't need more dollars. You need some amount of Bitcoin that will continue to accrue wealth over time. And until people really want to start asking these questions on their own, I've personally found it quite exhausting and difficult. But if people are open and willing to sort of, pull on the thread to see where it goes, you can get pretty far.
I think a good way to frame it is you throw it back at them. Is it a bad time to adopt the internet? Is it a bad time to adopt fire? Is it a bad time to adopt the wheel? No, it's never a bad time to adopt better money.
We appreciate that. Perfect way to outro it. We're moving back over to the Nakamoto stage where we're going to hear from Senator Jim Justice, Senator Marsha Blackburn, and Senator Cynthia Lummis talking about the Bitcoin Act. Heading back to the Nakamoto stage. Stay with us. We'll be right back here on the live desk after this.
A few years back, she's 5 years old now, all of a sudden, right over my shoulder, my son and daughter reached this little 10-week-old bulldog puppy. Well, I had no idea that she was going to turn into what she's turned into, but literally we had our first grandbaby at the time. He was 2 years old. December 7th was his birthday. He knew some words and he could talk, but he surely didn't know what the word puppy was. Well, she's down in the presents going around everywhere. He's down in the presents going around everywhere. And all of a sudden he turned around out of nowhere and said, "Where'd that baby dog go?" So we named her Baby Dog. And it always seems just fitting and everything that I knew she was going to grow into this. She's grown into a 60-pound brown watermelon, and she's my buddy, and she loves all y'all, and she loves Bitcoin. Thanks for being here.
We're excited to have her on stage with us. So now on to the topic at hand, the Bitcoin Act. I'm joined by three of the most pro-innovation, pro-Bitcoin members of Congress today. And Senator Lummis spearheaded a bill to create the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve.
Thank you. Thank you.
And they all recognize that what Bitcoin means to all of us and the nation at large. So, Senator Lummis, I thought we would start with you and talk about, have you had conversations with the president? What is it going to take to get this signed into law?
Well, it's great to be back at Bitcoin 2025. Thank you all for your help in the last year, bringing the Bitcoin Act to the attention of the American people and the world. President Trump supports the bill, and he has a team in the White House working on digital asset issues, everything from stablecoin to market structure to the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. And they will probably roll out in that order. The Senate Banking Committee has passed the stablecoin bill out of committee. We're getting close to being ready to have it on the floor. We've worked for untold hours with the minority party to satisfy them, and we should be voting on it the week we get back from this break. Then we'll do market structure, and then we'll do the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. And at that time, we'll be calling on you to help members of Congress in your states understand the importance. It's so important strategically to our country. Other countries are moving in the direction of establishing strategic Bitcoin reserves. The United States needs to lead in this area.
I agree. Our nation is $36 trillion in debt. How can this strategic Bitcoin reserve help right this ship? Senator Blackburn and then Senator Justice.
Yes, Lauren, and thank you so much for being here with us today, and thank you to all of you for being here and for the support that you have given us over the past year. Some of us have talked this morning about how we think that the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, in my home state of Tennessee, was really kind of a turning point for bringing things forward and pushing forward on things like Cynthia's bill for the Strategic Reserve, and that is where she introduced that bill at the conference in Nashville, and we're all supporting her efforts. And the reason this is important is that a Bitcoin reserve will provide an alternative and some stability that you don't get from government bonds or from a fiat currency or from gold. And it is important that we have that option. I think also, Lauren, as we look at this, knowing that our allies watch what we do, that it is important for us to take these apprehended assets that we have, the Bitcoin that government already owns, and use that as our nest egg and continue to buy and feed into that.
I agree. Senator Justice?
Well, first of all, let me just tell you this. I'm a business guy. I'm not a politician. I'm the new kid on the block. I came to the Senate with white hair and am not looking to be the chairman of committees or whatever it may be. I'm the most impatient guy in town. And absolutely with all in me, I know exactly what the key to Emerald City is. You're not afraid. There's too many people afraid. But Bitcoin represents protection. It represents strategic. It represents pragmatic. It represents growth. We're $37 trillion in debt today. $37 trillion. You hold the key to Emerald City right now. And what we've got to do is some way, somehow, bridge that key and make it become a reality. You hold so much power. Absolutely, we need every single last one of you. But today's our day. We can do it today. Thank you so much.
This week, we'll hear about institutions adopting Bitcoin. We've already seen countries start to adopt it, like El Salvador. How important is it for the U.S. to lead, Senator Lummis?
When China forbade mining of Bitcoin, they did the United States a big favor because a lot of those mining operations came here. President Trump has declared his stand for making Bitcoin mining and America conjoined. And so that's a good area to start. But having a strategic reserve is the ultimate way of having geopolitical advantage. I've talked to generals in our military who understand that economic power is as important as military power in addressing aggressors around the world. And there are generals in our military right now who are big supporters of having a strategic Bitcoin reserve for that reason. Then we have states, which have always been the incubators of innovation. Senator Justice was the governor of West Virginia. Senator Blackburn's going to be the next governor of Tennessee. The states are where the innovation is occurring. So you have Arizona, Texas, and New Hampshire that passed strategic Bitcoin reserve bills this year. You had 30 states consider strategic Bitcoin reserves. We have the United Arab Emirates purchasing Bitcoin through American exchange-traded funds. That's good for America because they're going to build their sovereign wealth in Bitcoin through an American ETF. We have the Czech Republic investigating through its central bank, adding Bitcoin to its diversified asset allocation. So it's happening all over the world. The United States often has led through the states. It's leading again through the states. But it's important that our government include among its strategic assets Bitcoin as digital gold. We have about 5% of the world's gold in the United States in reserve. We need to have at least 5% of the world's Bitcoin in reserve.
Yes.
Absolutely. To complement our strategy with other strategic reserves, Senator Blackburn, how do you look at Bitcoin alongside the other reserves that we have in this country?
Well, and we should do that. And that's why getting this strategic reserve fund in place is so vitally important. You know, one of the things that happens is that many of our allies follow what we do. So and if you want to get a good in-the-moment snapshot of this, watch what is happening with the tariff and trade negotiations. Everybody wants to be a part of our market. They want to be a part of our trade, and they will follow what we do. And as Senator Lummis said, we already see countries that are establishing these reserves. So it is vitally important that we hold this as a portion of our reserves. Now, Senator Justice mentioned the nation's debt, and knowing that we can continue to buy, the supply is limited, you've got 21 million coins, knowing that we can use this as a store of value, and knowing that we can hedge against that debt as we begin to work to pay down that debt so that we remain a solvent nation, This is one of the instruments that we have. You know, we talk a lot about using all the tools in the toolbox. This is a tool that we can add to that toolbox, and we should do that. Another thing, Lauren, that I think we should do to show the importance of Bitcoin is to have those ETFs available to federal employees on our federal retirement options.
That's a very good.
And the message that would send of the recognition of this. And President Trump has been absolutely stellar in creating the environment and providing the support that is necessary for us as legislators to move forward confidently in this space.
That's such a great point, and adoption continues to grow. Look at this conference. Every year it keeps getting bigger, and I think that trend will continue. Senator Justice, how do we bridge the gap so that adoption continues, and how can we meet communities who haven't been as fanatical following as this group here?
Well, I'd like you to really pay close attention to me just for a second. First of all, I've had the opportunity to be the governor of West Virginia for 8 years, and now I'm in the U.S. Senate. Honor beyond belief. But with all that being said, when I walked in the door as the governor of West Virginia, it was as upside down could possibly be. Maybe in a lot of ways similar to where we are in America today. Now, the whole thing, as I see this entire situation, is just one thing and one thing alone. You know, Senator Lummis just said, we've got to get the economics right. Many people ask me many times as governor, what's the most important thing you do? And I'll promise you this, it's all about the economics. Because when you have the economics right, you can do all kinds of things for all kinds of people. And if you have the economics screwed up, you can't do anything for anybody. This absolutely makes everything happen from the economic standpoint. It absolutely does all the other stuff, but when it really boils right down to it, what do we really do here? We make real headway in the national debt. We make real headway in people's lives, but here's the problem. Toby and Edith don't get it yet. And you may wonder, well, who are Toby and Edith? Toby and Edith are the voters. Now, with that, just stay with me just one more second. Here's the deal. If we get to a time, and let's hope and pray we get there, to where Toby and Edith are using Bitcoin at Walmart. And absolutely, as they use Bitcoin, they're saving themselves all kinds of money.
Yeah.
They're not only doing that, they're contributing to all kinds of goodness, and it's happening all over the place. How do we make all that happen? Because they don't understand. It becomes a marketing problem. It becomes an understanding problem. But let me just tell you just this. When Toby and Edith get it, then everything starts happening at light speed for all of us. All the legislation, everything in every way starts really happening like light speed. And why? And here's the whole why. Toby and Edith vote. All the politicians want to get reelected. Toby and Edith control the absolute control. So with all that being said, we got to do one thing. We got to make sure wherever we go, we bring Toby and Edith with us. If we bring Toby and Edith with us, all kinds of goodness will happen.
Definitely all eyes on DC these days, so I agree with that. You know, implementing this is really important, and I know, Senator Lummis, you've thought a lot about that. How does the reserve become implemented in a way that's responsible?
When you're 37 trillion in debt, you don't want to borrow more money to buy Bitcoin. You want to use assets that are underperforming and convert them to Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin Act would have us first use The money that Senator Blackburn mentioned is in the asset forfeiture accounts to be the basis for the first year's purchase of Bitcoin. We think we have about 200,000 Bitcoin in asset forfeitures. We're still trying to find out what the exact number is. Now it's been classified, so the three of us are going to have to go to a classified briefing to understand why they classified the asset forfeiture funds in Bitcoin.
Right.
That said, then in years 2 through 5, we can buy 200,000 Bitcoin by converting what we have in what's called gold certificates. Now, they're held by the United States at their 1974 value, which is somewhere, I don't know, between $36 and $45 each. Now, each of those could be brought up to current fair market value for gold, which is over $3,000 now, and then use it to buy Bitcoin. And honestly, we have enough assets in underperforming assets that we can get 5% of the world's Bitcoin without borrowing a single dime.
So everybody buy Bitcoin now. You know, each of you spend a ton of time in DC, and then you go home to your home districts. I would love to hear the questions that you get about your support of Bitcoin, your support of innovation as you travel back home. Maybe Senator Blackburn, you could start us off.
Yes, and Lauren, as I mentioned, Nashville is a very entrepreneurial town. And of course, we have Bitcoin Park in Nashville. And all across our wonderful state, whether it's the West, the Middle, or the East, we have Bitcoin mining operations that are choosing to locate there in Tennessee. We have a wonderful, reliable energy source. We are a leader in working toward nuclear power with the work that the TVA is doing and with SMRs. So people in Tennessee are beginning to pay attention to this. I will also add, Chattanooga, Tennessee is developing a commercialized quantum network. And so you've got companies that are locating there. In Tennessee, people like the idea that you have Bitcoin coming into the state, that there are mining operations coming into the state. They look at this as high-paying jobs. They look at this as jobs of the future, and as you see companies like Oracle, like Amazon, like the XAI that is in Memphis, and as they choose Tennessee to be their home, people say, this is what is going to give us jobs for our kids and our grandkids, and they want to see it there. So they're making room for these companies and putting the pressure on TVA to make certain they can supply all the power that is going to be needed.
I love to hear that. Senator Justice, how about West Virginia?
Well, West Virginia has surely got a ways to go, like a lot of states. We've got to get the understanding correct without any question, but I want to deviate just 1 second, because one thing that is enormously important, and it's just this, I have the privilege of being on the Small Business Committee and the Ag Committee and the Energy Committee. Honestly, if we don't watch, we're going to just spin around a couple of times, and a year and a half from today, we're going to have an energy crisis in this country like you can't imagine. And we got to get moving. We got to get moving right now. You can't imagine what a hold that you have and what a player that you are in all the energy sector that is coming at us, and we need you. We need you so badly, it's off the chart. Now, West Virginia is an energy state, and we got a lot of really smart people there that have done an awful lot with energy forevermore. So we understand energy. Like Bo Jackson said, Bo knows. Well, West Virginia knows energy. and they know of the crisis that is absolutely right at our doorstep, and they know of the potential that you have. You see, that's why I go back to just this. All of us together, you know, we're from 3 different states, we're from 3 different areas of the globe, but yet we absolutely all get it. We all in this room get it. And absolutely now what we've got to do is make sure those out there get it. Because when they get it, then all the politicians and everybody will move at light speed, like I've already said. We've got a ways to go, but we can get there, and we can get there now, but we got to really pull the rope together, and we got to pull it right this minute. The last thing I'd tell you is just this. I had a fellow a long time ago and everything. He used to look at me and say, any frog that's not proud of their own pond isn't much of a frog. So we got to be super proud right now. So let's get with it.
And Senator Lummis, in the last few minutes we have, would love to hear about Wyoming, and then also what everyone here can do to support this bill as well.
Thank you. Wyoming exports 12 times more energy than it consumes. So like Senator Justice, we know how to produce energy. We have Bitcoin mining equipment pulled up right next to oil and gas wells that have not yet been connected to pipelines. They are mining while that methane's being vented and using the vented methane. So we're getting an environmental win-win. And there are other examples of where Bitcoin mining is being used around the country to take advantage of energy and baseload balancing, like they're doing in Texas. When you have stable baseload, it works better. And so in Texas, they'll ramp down during the day when activities that are not mining Bitcoin related are occurring, and ramp up at night when the converse is true, balancing that baseload. Bitcoin's an advantage to this country in terms of energy consumption, energy adaptability, and is helping pave the way to artificial intelligence. We know that the one impediment for America being dominant in the artificial intelligence race is in our need for energy. And Bitcoin is helping transition us into a much more efficient energy-consuming nation as we move into the artificial intelligence age.
You know, if I can add on that, Cynthia, she makes such an important point there. And one of the things we're doing in Tennessee is engaging the hyperscalers when we look at small modular reactors and then finding ways to balance this base load and increase that base load supply of energy, but beginning to engage our miners and our hyperscalers as we look forward to a nuclear power generation and an SMR utilization.
So we're going to, sort of in conclusion about how we get this done. There's a reason the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is coming after stablecoins and market structure. And it's because there's too many members of the Congress who don't understand why we need a Bitcoin reserve.
Yes.
That's where you come in.
Yes.
What we've been doing since this bill was filed last September for people to look at and start talking about is to try to find out who understands it and who can help us get it passed. Alaska Representative Begich is going to carry it in the House. We're involved in carrying it in the Senate. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a heavier lift than I thought because so many people don't understand the use case for Bitcoin or the strategic importance of Bitcoin. Help us teach them. Talk to your senator. Write an article. Do a blog. Get on social media. Get where you can help address the issue with them. We know why we need one. We need the United States Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives to know why we need one. And once there's a greater mass of members of Congress who understand it, the president is going to step in and lead this effort.
Well, I just want to thank you all for your leadership on this issue.
And let me just say one thing. Thanks to these beautiful, unbelievably intelligent ladies and everything. God bless you for letting me be a part. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Wow. What an incredible...
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk presented by Mara. I'm here joined by Marty Bent, Pierre Richard, and Eric Kaysen. We just heard about the Bitcoin Act from Senator Lummis, Senator Justice, and Senator Marsha Blackburn. What we're going to do right now is actually cut over to the Ross Ulbricht exhibit, to the art exhibit that we have here. We also had Ross on the cover of our latest print issue. I personally wrote a fantastic piece in this one with Alexei Navalny's former chief of staff, but it's the freedom issue. So we highlighted the use cases for Bitcoin where it's essential for people who have been cut off from the financial system. And we have to rewind a little bit. When we talk about Ross Ulbricht, he was one of the first people to show people how Bitcoin could be used as money, right? With the Silk Road, people buying and selling goods in a bit of a different way than some of the ways that Bitcoin's being discussed here today on stage. On the way. Eric, I'll go over to you first. What are you looking forward to here? Ross is going to headline this whole thing. He's been in jail for 11 years, part of that time in solitary confinement. Now he's going to be speaking in front of 30,000 people. What's going through your mind?
I mean, like, first I want to just, like, honor and respect him for, like, the man's been through an extraordinary ordeal, and the kind of pressure that's put on him today in an event like this. I just kind of want to give him the space to show up however he needs to or wants to. You know, and furthermore, like, I hope I get an opportunity to meet him and just really express to him he really made a monumental contribution to the safe use of people choosing what to do and what to put into their bodies and making that accessible through a free market mechanism that really revolutionized and changed sort of the violence that went in to these darker markets. And I think it was a really powerful and incredible effort. And the fact that he's gone through this whole developmental arc of going into prison, being in solitary confinement, and then finally actually, you know, being released and having his record expunged is pretty incredible. So I'm curious to see where he's at, how he's feeling about it, and what his ideas for Bitcoin are into the future.
Yeah, great perspective. Appreciate it. Pierre, what are you thinking about when it comes to Ross at this conference?
I'm thinking about the judge that put him in prison for so long. When she sentenced Ross to a really extraordinarily lengthy sentence, she herself said that she was making an example out of him. And I don't think that's the proper role for the judiciary system. It's not what we should be using prisons for, to make examples out of people. We should be using prisons to keep violent criminals out of society so that they don't do more crime. So I think that he was a political prisoner and that President Trump, much to his credit, at this conference in Nashville last year, promised to free him and then did exactly that very early in his administration. So I think it goes to show that voting matters. Elections have consequences, and Ross, the injustice that was done to him has now been corrected. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say today.
Appreciate that, Pierre. Marty, I'm going to come back to you. When we come back from the Nakamoto stage, we have to head back over there right now, though. We're about to hear from Faryar Shahzad, Rosie Rios, Chris Lascivita, Brian Jack. We're going to be talking about America at 250 years old, the America 250 celebration, and the next golden age of America and how Bitcoin will be a part of that. Stick with us. We're heading back to Nakamoto. We'll be right back after this.
On this stage. So our next panel is titled The Next Golden Age of America. So please join me. Let's get lots of energy in here. Our moderator is Faryar Shahzad from Coinbase. Let's get a round of applause, everyone. We have Rosie Rios from America 250. We have Chris Lascivita, the President Trump's 2024 campaign, and Brian Jack, U.S. House of Representatives. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. Such a great event, and particularly for those of us who were here at the Bitcoin conference a year ago in Nashville. an extraordinary evolution of what's happened in Bitcoin, crypto, and in the United States in the year since. So we have an amazing panel and a particularly important topic. I think for many of you, you know that we're about to hit the 250th birthday of the United States. And it's a great opportunity to talk about that with this panel because we have people who are leaders in that effort. And this audience talking about Bitcoin, freedom, crypto is a perfect opportunity to do that. So I want to just kind of get right into it and ask a question of Rosie Rios, who was a former treasurer of the United States. There's over $1 trillion of paper currency out circulating with her signature on it. So she's quite famous and familiar to all of you, even if you may not know it. But so Rosie, tell us, so you're chairing the America 250 effort. What is the America 250 and what are we celebrating?
So thank you so much for that. So America 250 is the Congressional Commission planning the nation's 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But who remembers the bicentennial of 1976? All right, great. Good. Excellent. So I remember it like it was yesterday. And this one is going to be bigger and better. There's going to be celebrations that have never, ever, ever been seen on this scale, not just nationally, but globally. We've already hit the ground running. We're already hitting some milestones already with the 250th anniversary of our federal government. So the Army's 250th on June 14th. Be prepared. It's going to be amazing. We start hitting all these other milestones coming up, and this July 4th is the one-year count-up. So if you're going to take away anything from this, remember this. 350 for 250. No one else has ever made that declaration that we're going to engage all 350 million Americans here and abroad. It's going to be spectacular.
Amazing, amazing. So Chris, you're playing a huge role in the America 250 effort. We're the Bitcoin conference. So what is the connection between Bitcoin, crypto, and America 250?
Well, thanks, and it's a great pleasure to be here, especially in front of so many friends who were instrumental in helping Donald Trump get elected president. And I, for one, and I can say this, that had we not been successful, many of you all, including myself, we would have been looking for a country with a non-extradition treaty. So it's good to be here. You know, really, it's about freedom, right? And what crypto represents on a national scale. And you know, this country was founded in the entrepreneurial spirit of Americans, and we're on the forefront of establishing and formulating, you know, the future of currency, and it's a natural fit that you would have that reach a degree of legitimacy while we're celebrating America's 250th anniversary, and I just can't think of any other better synergy than that.
That's amazing. And Chris was actually hugely instrumental in getting the president to adopt Bitcoin and crypto as one of the platforms of his campaign that ultimately was pivotal in his success. And I think we all saw the energy in the last Bitcoin conference, and then ultimately saw the results in the voting booth. And one of the things we also saw is a new crop of Congress people coming into office, including Congressman Brian Jack, who we have a privilege of having on this panel with us. So Brian, you're in Congress. You're a leader in Congress. You're one of the folks that everyone talks about as the next generation of leaders that we're going to see emerging in the freshman class. So tell us about kind of Bitcoin, America 250, and how you're looking at your role in Congress.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me, and to everyone in the room. Were it not for the support and investment from so many of you in my campaign, were it not for President Trump's endorsement of my campaign, and were it not for the support of my constituents, I would not be here before you. And I think it's instructive and reflective of the approach Bitcoin and the crypto industry has undertaken to engage people running for Congress in early stages, to help brief them, make them aware of the issue set, enables us to be much better legislators, because when we get to Capitol Hill on day one, we're ready and prepared, thanks in large part to all of you. And I'm honored to be on this panel, meeting new friends, but also at the same time, Chris and I share a unique distinction. We were at one of the very first dinners at which President Trump started planning his 2024 campaign, just a handful of us. So it's special. I think Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles are the best presidential campaign managers in history, and I'm not just saying that because he got President Trump to come to the Bitcoin conference last year, but I say that because they ran an incredible campaign around issues that Americans care about. And for us, when we talk about Congress, we talk about what are we doing. This Congress, we've only had 119 iterations of Congress since our 250-year beginning. And I say that because this Congress is that first Congress in my mind that can really effectuate the change you are looking for, create that stable framework that enables regulatory environment to have an opportunity for you to have innovation and entrepreneurship. But beyond that, I think this Congress has an opportunity to codify so much of what President Trump has already done with administrative action. We hear that a lot from our constituents. I think we hear that from many of you too in the audience, people that supported me. You want to see all the great things President Trump has done with executive action codified into law. I look forward to pursuing that and talking a little bit more about that on this panel.
No, that's great, Brian. Well, let's actually ask you about that. You're on some key committees in Congress. You had a very impressive set of committees that you were assigned to. What tangibly have you been able to kind of get done in your short time in office?
Well, first and foremost, so I mean, our overarching theme for the last few months in Congress has been to pass President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. We did that last week. Took a lot of effort, but we got it done. So thank you to everyone who helped support that. But another thing that we've done that I'm really proud of, and it does impact some of y'all in this room, is we've really started to roll back the regulatory regime that Joe Biden thrust upon all of us. And I say that because you mentioned the committees on which I serve. So you're going to hear from a few of my colleagues. You just heard from an incredible panel of senators that are incredibly powerful and are working on these issues every day. You're going to hear from some of my colleagues later in this Congress or the conference that serve on the Financial Services Committee. I serve on the House Rules Committee, and it has a very unique intersection with everything we care about. The Rules Committee was the first committee ever formed by Congress. It was constituted the second day of the first Congress. It's the same committee through which James Madison moved the Bill of Rights, and it's the last stop for any legislation before it hits the floor. And I say that because earlier this year, we started using a congressional tool called the Congressional Review Act that enables us to repeal any regulation Joe Biden's administration put on any sector during those last few months in office. And one of the first laws that Donald Trump signed into law was the repeal of a very niche but interesting issue for some folks in the room. It was a policy that the CFPB thrust upon the industry in December that really helped them regulate, if you will, or over-regulate payment processors. So a lot of the payment processors that process Bitcoin, process crypto, they were going to be under these incredible burdens by CFPB. We used the Congressional Review Act through the Rules Committee to repeal this regulation, and that's just the first step. But when it comes back to what you were sharing, I think the most important thing that we can do is codify what President Trump has already put into writing and create that framework, create that regulatory environment that enables our market structure to grow, enables innovation to thrive, entrepreneurship to thrive, and you have invested and helped elect so many of my colleagues that are going to be so motivated to get out there and lead on this issue because they're now hearing from their constituents for the first or second time, depending on which Congress you talk about this specific issue set. So I think the activism from people in the room, if there's one takeaway from my speech today, so to speak, it's the activism really helps create an environment in which legislation that can help this industry grow survives. Thank you.
No, it's been amazing what you've been able to do, Brian, and your colleagues in Congress. So before I go back to you, Rosie, I want to make a big announcement, which I'm super proud to make on behalf of Coinbase. We have just become a major sponsor of the America 250 effort. We'll be announcing the details of it fairly soon. But for a company whose mission is economic freedom, we're really proud to be a part of this important celebration.
Thank you.
So Rosie, you were treasurer for 8 years. You were in charge of managing how we produce currency and issue it. And so for a lot of people, when they think about Bitcoin or they think about crypto, they're kind of unnerved because it reflects a change in how we think about currency. But you, better than anyone, can help us understand why currency changes and how we transact value is a constantly evolving thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So first of all, I think for us, I actually led the Future of Money initiative starting in 2012. And back then, the fear was Google Wallet was going to take everything over and everything's going to have to shut down, no more currency, no more coins. And I think what people have to realize is that consumer behavior is very, very hard to change unless there's a shock to the system. Well, the pandemic really provided that shock to the system in terms of what needs to change. And I think, what I've been so amazed with is the momentum for that level of change, this awareness and action that has happened in this administration. I mean, it's amazing what 4 months make. in terms of giving that green light for innovation to actually happen. You're going to hear me say a lot, the train has left the station. So, thank you. Bitcoin is here to stay. Blockchain is here to stay. And, the unfortunate part about government traditionally, it doesn't lead, it follows. And a lot of it is because you don't have a lot of the kind of the subject matter experts who are literally coming into government. And so that's why the fact that this administration has taken the lead to form these task forces, to actually bring business and the expertise into those conversations, we're literally playing catch up from the last 10 years where things didn't happen. Now things are happening. And the fact that there's now this momentum, that clarity is going to happen now for the very first time, that's going to allow this innovation to take place. I mean, the job that we need to do as government officials is stay out of the way. How do we provide those wings? How do we literally provide the ability for those guardrails and for the regulatory framework that's going to be needed for folks to do their job? And so I think, but it's going to take time. I mean, we have the credit card systems in place. That's not going to go away anytime soon. There's going to be obviously a lot of stakeholders involved, not just, card holders and financial institutions, but consumers in general. So, this transition period is going to be important. It's not going to happen overnight. And that's the same for fiat. I mean, we need fiat, believe it or not. People, this is why we have stable coins. A dollar is always going to be worth a dollar. The US dollar is still the world's reserve currency. That's not going to go away anytime soon either. But the fact that there is now so much more support, and that goes, by the way, for the administration on the 250th. I mean, on President Trump's 10th day in office, he issued the executive order forming Task Force 250 to hit the ground running. I've been on this commission now for 7 years. But in the last 4 months, we've gotten more stuff done than the previous 7 years combined. And Chris has been part of that team, by the way. That's the green light we all need to move forward.
So, Rosie, you alluded to this, but just to say it out loud, I think it would surprise people to know that you were the treasurer for 8 years under President Obama. I think for a lot of us in our community, we sort of think it's become a partisan issue. Democrats on one side against Bitcoin and crypto, and Republicans in favor of. But there's so many smart Democrats like you who are on the front end of this. Can you talk about
look, I'm a fiscal conservative. I always have been. I've been a disciple of blockchain in general for years. And so, I feel like the rest of the world is just catching up to this. So I don't think it's a DNR issue. And by the way, we are by law mandated to be bipartisan for the 250th, by law. So, look, I come from a family of 9 kids. 4 of us are Democrats, 4 of us are Republicans, and I'm the only one that's kind of a fiscal conservative in the middle, but with moderate views. And I think if we learned anything from this last election, those borders, boxes, and boundaries don't exist anymore. Look what Trump is doing for the next generation of voters, right? People didn't see that coming, where people thought millennials and post-millennials were going to be traditional kind of progressives. That's actually not the case. I know Chris can cite this better than I can, but the percentages of Trump's support for the 18 to 29 age category was phenomenal. And if you want to see the future, go talk to a millennial or post-millennial. That is absolutely the future.
So Chris, when you were co-manager of the Trump campaign, and you were there, obviously, for every big decision they made, a lot of those decisions that the campaign made under your leadership were counterintuitive or seemed counterintuitive, and then in hindsight were prescient and strokes of genius. One of the big ones was to adopt Bitcoin and crypto as a big platform for the campaign, which everyone didn't understand at the time. But can you kind of talk about the evolution of the president's thinking on the issue and how you looked at it as an electoral opportunity?
Well, thanks. And it's about knowing who your base is and who you need to attract and who you need to bring in. And clearly on the Trump campaign, we made, massive moves with Hispanics, with African-American men, with suburban women, with younger voters. And it's really is, Bitcoin and the whole crypto movement really was a part of that, because it's such a wide swath of voters. It's not just, one segment of the population. So it actually fit, from a political perspective, Plus, I mean, there's no better definition in the 21st century for entrepreneurship and freedom and liberty than what you all represent. And so it fit, you know, it fit perfectly. And of course, the president, he speaks to literally, and Brian can tell you, hundreds of people every week from all walks of life. And he really, you know, takes in, you know, their advice and their counsel. And you know, that's how he comes to the information in order to make decisions. Obviously, we had a lot of great friends, you know, with David Bailey, one of the first people that we met with. And I remember the meeting in New York and with the president, and, you know, really getting an understanding of what it represents and how to make, you know, the use of it. But really, it's a welcoming, you know, I think with a lot of the legislation that's moving now, you see that you actually have a friend. You actually have a partner that will help grow, that provides that degree of legitimacy, that provides the clarity for the market. You know, these are things that they're obviously very important for any industry, but you know, taken in a political context, it just was one of those things that matched up perfectly with what the president's vision was, and of course you guys were a big part of that and very supportive on so many different levels. But knowing that you have a friend in the White House, knowing that you have, you know, I know Bo Hines will be here a little later today, our true friend who's moving a lot of this stuff for the industry, and again, it's just it's a great partnership. And why shouldn't America be the leader? Why shouldn't we be? We always have been. And so now we have a president who recognizes that, wants to make that a reality, and you guys are very, very much a part of making it happen.
Hey, Brian, you know, one of the things that we did at Coinbase in trying to activate the crypto voter was to create this thing called Stand With Crypto, which has now reached about 2.3 million advocates around the country. And for those of you who haven't signed up, I would encourage you to go to standwithcrypto.org and sign up and be heard. But as a member of Congress, there's still a lot of your colleagues who are sort of not with the program and are voting against crypto just reflexively. How important is it for everybody here to make their voice heard, talk to their member of Congress, stand up with sign up to grassroots organizations, and talk to people like your colleagues so that they understand why this is an important issue?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say, as it relates to Stand With Crypto, I can't speak more highly enough about the team that is within Stand With Crypto. Nick Carr has been fantastic for me. Everyone at Coinbase, obviously from Brian all the way down, Kara, Paul. But I say that because, I mean, really, which, as I alluded to before, I mean, every member of Congress has hundreds of issues thrown their way every single day. But I think what Stand With Crypto did such a good job, first off, you chase votes. I mean, I got the text message. Granted, I'm Georgia, so I'm in a swing state, but I probably got 30 or 40 elements of outreach, whether it be text, email, phone call, all through Stand With Crypto, that reminded me just how many people within my district care about these issues. And really, I think what you have with Congress right now, we passed the one big beautiful bill in the House. We'll see what happens with the Senate. Hopefully, we're able to, you know, fulfill the president's goal of having this signed into law by Independence Day, but that gives us another 75% of this Congress in which we're going to want to make history, and making history with respect to creating, you know, stablecoin legislation, creating the framework that we all need to enable the entrepreneurial spirit Chris alluded to thrive. That's something we can accomplish this Congress, but motivating members of Congress always comes from the ground up. It comes from the grassroots, and you have 2.3 million, but it's probably much more if you think about people that want to see America continue to lead the world in every element of society, every element of business and industry. This is where we're looking to do so. But I'll also just note, as it relates to a role that you mentioned earlier, I'm also the deputy chairman of the NRCC. So I'm the number 2 guy responsible for retaining the House majority for Republicans. And one of the things we need is we need to be able to sell victories and wins back home in 2026 in order to continue this Republican majority, to continue to enact President Trump's agenda. And by having the partnership you have in the White House, you know, any politician's priority is where he or she spends their time. Look how many people from the administration are here before you. Look how many people who are instrumental in Congress. You've got our great majority whip, Tom Emmer. You've got Brian Stile, who chairs the subcommittee of jurisdiction through which all legislation will flow. You've got Byron Donalds, who is going to go on to probably bigger and better things. So you've got really good representation. You have the senators here that just talked about the Bitcoin Act. So you've got a lot of people here that are going to help play a leading role in this space. But it's really incumbent upon everybody in this room and everybody that's watching. You got to reach out to your members of Congress, make sure they feel that support back home. 2.4 million, in my mind, is reflective of a movement that's only going to continue to grow as long as you continue to engage. So thank you.
Rose.
You know, I want to follow up with that. This could very well be one of the most consequential Congress bodies we've ever had in our history. The engagement has been incredible. In fact, we have formed the largest congressional caucus right now. We're 297 members of our America 250 Congressional Caucus. We're actually on track to be the largest congressional caucus in the history of our country. And it's almost split equitably between Democrats and Republicans. People want this to happen. And I want to go on one other point that you mentioned, Congressman, which is the global nature of what we're talking about. This isn't just about the U.S. This is about celebrating being the oldest democracy in the world and what that represents moving forward. So, you know, think about what's happening in 2026, by the way. It's also the World Cup, right? Mostly in the U.S. And 2 short years later is the LA Olympics. You're going to have billions of people watching the U.S. in 2 very short years. And so the eyes of the world are watching. We are setting the tone for what happens, not just in our history, but for the future. And you know, for all of us, again, this is about the American dream. This is about, again, the values in which our country was founded, was those liberties that Chris mentioned, but the pursuit of the American dream. When people ask me all the time, how do you know you're going to be successful in 2026? And my answer is the same. I want as many Americans as possible to feel like this is the land of opportunity all over again. And for Bitcoin and blockchain in general, whoever creates that dominant digital infrastructure will set the tone for the whole global financial system, and it starts here, literally, at this conference, with this leadership, with this president moving forward.
I'm going to come back to you, Rosie, to finish us off, but just quickly, Chris, you're already advising a number of candidates in the next cycle. Is Bitcoin and crypto coming up as a campaign issue and a campaign opportunity for them?
Well, for the people that I work for, yes. You know, because we've made in just a very short period of time so much progress, and we've moved fast. You know, President Trump's in a hurry. And, you know, the first 100 days was marked by a level of activity I don't think people have seen coming out of Washington in an awful long time. And the next 100 days, of course, we're, you know, a third way into that already. And we want to hold and we want to build on the gains that we've made. And we can't literally go back. And, you know, by codifying a lot of the things that we want to accomplish, we can't do it unless we have the help in the House and in the Senate. And of course, most of my time is spent advising the president's outside political operation, and obviously the entire goal there is increasing the House and increasing the Senate. Because if we lose the House, you know, I can't tell you what the next 2 years are going to look like. So our focus has got to be really on moving the ball forward and building on those gains. It's the single most important thing that we can do. And everyone in this room, everyone out in the hallway, everyone here has a key role to play. Midterm elections, you know, midterm elections don't generate the level of activity or turnout than, say, a presidential race does. But we know our people are out there. And so it's incumbent on all of us to ensure that they show up. And so we'll stand with crypto and, you know, all of the support that we now have, this very energized and activated customer base, really, will set the tone, and it'll put us where we need to be, which is at the forefront. And because, again, as I said earlier, why shouldn't America be leading the way on this, especially in the 250th anniversary of our great country? So, but again, it's shaping up to be, I would say, probably one of the top 5 issues that we'll be debating in the midterms. And the great thing about that is we also have an educational aspect to the message, because there's a lot of people out there who don't understand. And so we need to take advantage of that opportunity, educate the voters, because it's a very simple message to sell, and one that the vast majority, overwhelming numbers of Americans would agree with.
Amazing. So just one thing. At Coinbase, we've committed to take Stand With Crypto up to 4 million advocates by the time of the 26th election. Rosa, we only have a couple of seconds left. How can people find out more about the Sequincentennial?
There's something for everyone on our website, america250.org. We're going to have student competitions. We're going to have the ability to nominate whose story you think should be preserved in perpetuity at the Library of Congress. We have many more anniversaries coming up. Post Office in July, we have the Navy in October, we have the Marines in November. So many things to look forward to, and big, fabulous moments we will share very, very soon, maybe even on July 4th. Those amazing moments that are yet to come. But I want to just end by saying, look, it is a public-private partnership across the board. You have representation here that I think, these are leaders. These aren't folks who are just kind of talking. They're actually walking the walk together. We're doing all of this together. So much more to look forward to. And again, thank you to all of you for what you have done to put this president in office, but more importantly, what we can do to inspire the next generation of leadership for the future.
Amazing. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If a Bitcoin was the size of a quarter, all 21 million of them would fit inside a single shipping container. But to fit the dollars the Fed prints on average every day, you'd need 72 shipping containers. Each year, you'd need 26,280 containers. And to fit what they've printed in the last decade, well, you'd need a lot more than that.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk presented by Mara. We are live here at Bitcoin 2025. Vibes are high, Bitcoin's price is high, all is well. My name is Frank Corva. I'm the political correspondent at Bitcoin Magazine. I'm joined by Jeff Walton, founder of MSTR True North, Pierre Richard, host of the Bitcoin for Corporation show, and Timothy Kotzman, host of the Bitcoin Treasuries podcast, as well as a proud member of MSTR True North. We were just talking a little bit about MSTR True North off camera. MSTR has become this incredible performing stock in the United States. You teach people about it, why it's worth investing in. Please tell us a little bit about what you discuss on the podcast.
Yeah. So MSTR True North, we're really focused on the securitization of Bitcoin, how MSTR is really changing the landscape of traditional finance. In my opinion, this is the biggest story in all of 2025. Bitcoin treasury companies, what strategy is doing with the products that they're offering the market with different risk return metrics. So what we're aiming to do is really provide some education for the market so they can start to think about these different products that they're offering the market. And these are alternative to traditional Bitcoin lending, and they provide a much needed risk-return asset for, standard or traditional portfolios. So what we're seeing here is the evolution of a Bitcoin portfolio where you can have an efficient frontier of all of these different assets to maximize your upside and minimize your downside. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So I know that you're focusing on MSTR. Timothy, over to you. You're looking at different companies that are holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet. What other companies should we be paying attention to right now?
Well, I think the obvious name might be GameStop. Might also be the U.S. government. So yeah, I think there'll be some exciting announcements from what we're hearing on the ground here. And it's been really exciting to work with Jeff and Ben and everybody at True North, and also really put a spotlight on the executives and the analysts with the Bitcoin Treasuries podcast of like just what's going on here, and to hear their story and try to just dig a little bit deeper. I think it'll be interesting to see how many Bitcoin treasury companies, not just Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but really using those capital markets and the leverage intelligently to go about that strategy in different capital markets and different industries as far as their operating business is concerned. And it'll be really interesting. Some of the conversations that I'm having is, hey, we're good on the capital side, or we're comfortable on the capital side, but what about the media side? What about people actually knowing, well, this is the 5th company or the 12th company? How are you going to differentiate from people kind of leaning into what is your story? What is your conviction on Bitcoin, right? Because you can talk about your company till you're blue in the face, but the Bitcoin aspect and really that storytelling that Michael Saylor has done so fabulously for 5 years, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
I think that's a great point. I recently spoke with Eric Semler of Semler Scientific, which I think was the second publicly traded company. They followed in MicroStrategy's footsteps to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And he said, yeah, I learned how important messaging was. I had to come to these conferences, tell people what I was doing, get them excited about what I was doing, let them explain it so that they felt more secure about what I was doing. Pierre, over to you. When are we going to get to a point where holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet is just the norm? How far out are we from just these not being super exciting stories? Another company puts Bitcoin on the balance sheet and it just becomes a prudent thing to do for a company.
I think that it's going to take some generational change. When we look at companies that have gotten very close to adopting a Bitcoin treasury standard, sometimes the blocker is just one veto on the board of directors. And so it's really challenging for companies that have developed a track record where they have enough success to not need Bitcoin. Saylor puts it, Bitcoin's on a need-to-know basis. And so that creates a huge hurdle for this trend to spread to other adjacent companies in different industries. On the other hand, when we look at the amount of disruption that's coming in from AI and from regulatory policy, whether it's tariffs or other things, clearly there's a lot of pressure on management teams and boards to find ways to get capital markets to open up and to have access and to be able to compete with these magnificent 7 that are sometimes quasi-monopolies. And so there is a bit of a trap, but it's going to take a lot of education in order to overcome those overly risk-averse board members who don't understand Bitcoin yet. So that's why I'm excited about the Bitcoin for Corporations podcast, and of course the Bitcoin Treasuries podcast as well. So we just need as much content out there as possible to get the messaging through.
Yeah, just as a quick final thought, if you don't mind, Jeff, back to you. Just when it comes to education, how important is that? Really breaking down some of this terminology that might be new to new investors, to new Bitcoiners. How much of a focus do you put on that?
Yeah, a ton of focus, right? Because what the world is trying to reconceptualize here is risk. Right, you're comparing the old world to the new world, right? And you're seeing all these new products that have.
Jeff, if you don't mind, I just got word from the Nakamoto stage. We do have to cut back over there. I apologize. We're going to be right back with Jeff, though. We appreciate the insights, and I appreciate that emphasis on yet before Pierre as well. But we're heading back over. We're going to commercial break. We're back to the Nakamoto stage, and then we're back here on the live desk. Stick with us here at Bitcoin 2025.
people that I hurt. That was not part of the conversation. It was punish and send a message. Going to jail for a very few hours was a defining moment in my life. I felt hopeless. But inside the walls where I lost all my agency, almost all my hope, and my freedoms, I met others. I met plebs. I met underdogs, nonviolent drug offenders, and dozens of people who had no hope of getting out. I'm incredibly blessed. I had a fucking badass criminal defense attorney who showed up and ensured that I pled down. The felonies didn't stick. Not everybody has that option. Today, there are problems. Our institutions cannot respond fast enough in the age of abundance with the speed of AI and the changes that need to occur. America was founded on a set of principles that believe that people can self-organize and unite with anyone to do right. When the degenerates left Europe and started to think about this thing called America, the Europeans, the elites, they were glad to see him go. Like, hell yeah, these are the worst people ever. Like, look at these degens. If shitposting was a thing, the founders of America would have been the best at it. I think that's funny. Thank you. Come on, we gotta liven up. Come on, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So where are we at today? Well, I told you a little bit about my journey, but it didn't stop there. I got out of jail and I had a deep, unsettling thought. So I started reading books. I didn't want to go out, I didn't want to talk to people. And I picked up a book called Liberty Defined by Ron Paul. All of a sudden, I saw hope. I saw a system. I saw philosophy. I saw letting go of tribalism in pursuit of getting things right. And reading Dr. Paul's book set me on a path. I didn't know how, but at first I wanted everybody inside of the jails who didn't deserve to be there to get out. So what do? Have you ever tried to get someone out of jail? It's incredibly difficult. So my wife and I threw a fundraiser for a startup philanthropic organization where I invited all my friends, my Bitcoin friends. They were 1/3 the party. Parker Lewis and I stayed up till 2 a.m. He orange pilled me that night where I let go of my shitcoinery. But most importantly, we threw a fundraiser for a woman named Alice Marie Johnson, just a little one, just to get things started. I said that night it would take 10 years, but maybe if we work together, we can get Alice and many people like her out of jail. I'm proud to report that 2 years later, because of President Donald Trump, he pardoned Alice and she walked free. Played a super small role. Well, what does that mean? It means anybody can participate in this system to do right. So not only did Alice walk free, but as most of you know, Ross Ulbricht walks free and hugs his mother because Bitcoiners showed up and were the change that we wanted to see. Few prouder moments than watching Ross and just knowing that he was able to embrace his family. He made mistakes. I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. There's a lot of problems in the world. Everybody here wants something. You need something. You're here. Maybe it's because you see something bigger than yourself. I know I do. So in addition to the criminal justice reform work that we started just showing up and taking action, we started mining Bitcoin. I had an intern. I'm proud to report, I believe he was the first Doge intern, Department of Grid Efficiency, back in 2017. Finished all the work I gave him, started mining crypto in 2017, and all of a sudden we saw a price signal. If we can innovate in energy markets, we can create value for grid stakeholders. We pioneered something called HODL Ranch. We built the world's first Bitcoin-only energy infrastructure project, and we just made that shit up. I was very blessed to participate in the shale revolution, where a bunch of my homies, my landmen, and others, we just got together. We looked for markets, we built liquidity. What HODL Ranch did, me and a few other underdogs, is we saw a market need. Now, of course, the Germans, they thought they had us beat in this competition. They teamed up with Iceland. And as I stated at Consensus 2018, Texas is going to dominate the future of Bitcoin mining. And that obviously is true today. But the game's just getting warmed up. The grid, America, we need a lot more power. A lot more. And right now, I don't see a lot of good options. Everyone's complaining. But a ragtag bunch of us in Texas, we learned you can write laws. We learned we're operating in a rules-based system called the civic process of America. What the founders laid out was a beautiful system where anyone have a voice. I just wrapped up, and we're about to wrap up the Texas legislative session where we had a grid bill, we had the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill, which Texas got passed. Oh, no, well, we're almost there. So Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he got the Senate, he teamed up with anyone, got them in line. Speaker Burrows, he united with anyone to do right. And we have successfully brought the two chambers of Texas together. Democrats, Republicans, other plebs, and other individuals have come together and are about to send the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve to Governor Abbott's desk. This is monumental. David Bailey, the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, laid out a vision, said we need strategic Bitcoin reserves. I wasn't even that involved. I just said, oh my God, my homies are showing up to Texas. Let's get after it. So organizations like the Texas Blockchain Council, they united with people and they got the strategic Bitcoin reserve on the way to the governor's desk. But there are more problems. Right now, the grid, we have a lot more power. So how do we solve that? I literally learned you can write laws. Anyone in this room can write a law. You can show up to your political member's office. You can unite with them. You can educate them. There are ERCOT protocols. There are PUC rules. Every single person in here is affected by the reliability and innovation on their grids. And every single Bitcoiner can show up and be the change that we want to see in the world. So my call to action today is, I've done a lot of crazy stuff. And there's a small group of us in Texas that are just getting warmed up. But to ensure that America's upcoming 250th relaunch is successful, we need a lot more people showing up. And every single individual can participate in this new system. We're starting with Texas. In fact, we stood up a new trade association called the Texas Bitcoin and Grid Alliance. Me and some homies on email, Telegram, we literally got together and started it the night before my last testimony in front of the Texas legislature. And I was able to tell the Senate State Affairs Committee that a ragtag group of Texas Bitcoin miners are showing up and we're just getting warmed up. And we just made that up. So you got a lot of options. Bitcoiners have empirically proved that we're here for finance. We're voluntarily changing the financial system, Wall Street, global public equity markets. That momentum is there and it is just getting warmed up. But will Bitcoin's greatest role be in advancing energy abundance or remaking capital markets? I don't know. That's up to you. Where do you want to get involved? Every single person. We have digitized money. We have torn down all rent-seeking initiatives from a legacy system. Before us today, we have the options to change, to embrace the principles that made America great. We have an opportunity. Everyone in this room has an opportunity to be the change. So what do you do with that? What are you going to do? It's up to you. I think a lot about what we're doing, the problems in the world, my kids. What do I want their future to look like? What did my granddad go through, whose dad died in 6th grade? He didn't have anybody there. Ended up founding a business in the oil business that set me and my family up for greater prosperity. I never got to meet my granddad. but I think about him often. My dad was a great man. In fact, he's passed away, but he was the first obituary in the world to unite the oil and gas community and the Bitcoin tribe. In his obituary, my brother literally wrote it talking about how when we first started, few people believed in us, but my dad believed in us. And so today, fellow American Bitcoiners, don't ask what Bitcoin can do for you. Ask what you can do for Bitcoin. To the liberty lovers across America and across the world, don't beg for sats. Don't ask America for sats. We don't want to send you sats. We want you to come here. Come to America. Come to Texas. Bring your ideas. Let's build the energy abundant world that America so desperately needs for all. Whether you're a Bitcoiner, still shitcoining, or a recovering fiat bro, ask of us, ask of the Bitcoiners what we ask of ourselves. Integrity, courage, an extremely strong bias for action, and a commitment to first principles. Number go up's the signal, but it's not salvation. History is the final timestamp. Let's build the voluntary parallel systems and for the new American institutions, rooted in freedom, subsidiary, and pleb leadership. History is being written. You are writing it. We do not wait, we trust, we verify, we build. Stack sats like your freedom depends on it. Spend sats on Bitcoin businesses. Speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. Build what fiat won't. The network is strong. The Texas Bitcoiners, our mission is clear. Every single human on Earth deserves reliable, extremely abundant, cheap power. To bring that to reality, every single person needs to ask themselves, what change do you want to see in the world? And how do you be the change to create the world that we want to live in? Thank you for your time, and I encourage you to go out and build and unite with anyone to do right.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk presented by Mara. I'm Frank Corva. I'm joined by Jeff Walton, Pierre Richard, and Timothy Kotzman. Jeff, we had to cut over to the Nakamoto stage and we cut you short. You were telling us the importance of education when it comes to investing in companies like MicroStrategy. Please continue with that thought you had before.
Yeah, education is incredibly important here because the world is reframing and rethinking how they see risk, right? They're seeing risks of the physical world and these other assets that they may own, whether it be real estate, or bonds or equities in other places, and they look at, what is the risk-return trade-off of all these other things, and comparing it to the risk-return trade-off of, holding a digital asset. And, what is the risk? And we talk about the evolution of these products and thinking about Bitcoin as your hurdle rate, right? So always stacking Bitcoin, and how does that influence the decision-making you have today?
Yeah, appreciate that. You talked a little bit earlier, Timothy, about messaging, right? Messaging can be tough. You sort of have to find something that emotionally resonates with people. You have to get their attention, but then you have to sort of get that message home. What are some strategies that work when it comes to your messaging and letting people know the importance about the details with these Bitcoin treasury companies?
Yeah, I think we're so early that, unless you're on CNBC and you're a sailor, or you're on all the podcasts like Sailor, I think we're just really early. Like, I think it's yet to be seen, like, high quality 2, 5, 10-minute, 3-hour Lex Friedman type, like all of that for these CEOs and companies to tell their stories. I think that's where this is going. And I'm often reminded of when Eric Semler was at MIT. Jeff was interviewing him, and he said, look, I'm an introvert. I'm not really, I got to make a presentation. I got to do all this media, and he's leaning into it. But for me individually, personally, that was, I'm like, oh, that's very endearing. That's authentic. It makes me like Eric Semler more. So I think if you could just, whether people come to New York or Las Vegas, or you helicopter yourself into London and you spend a day or two with these guys and just really get that content and get it, as Sailor said in Orlando, get it out in the 2 minutes or the 2 hours that people want, I think that's going to be really powerful, and I think that's what we're going to see.
Great perspective. Appreciate that. Pierre, you're doing some real important work with the Bitcoin for Corporations show. 2 episodes out there in the wild. What's coming next? What can people expect from this show? What sorts of educational efforts will you be sort of putting front and center?
So I think every Bitcoin treasury company has its own story, both in terms of how they got into Bitcoin, but also in terms of what they want to do with it. And whether it's innovating on the capital structure side of issuing securities that have different trade-offs, of some of them want to take on less risk because Bitcoin's too volatile. Others, so that would be like STRF or STRK. Others want to go leverage long Bitcoin, and they might even be thinking about the derivatives around that. And so that's on the liabilities and equity side for these treasury companies. On the asset side, there's also going to be new different strategies. So Saylor has really emphasized just put it in cold storage, don't even reveal the addresses, and keep it passive, right? Others might try to be more active in their management of the Bitcoin treasury. That's going to come with risks. It's going to come with opportunities. So it's going to be interesting to explore those. And then also understanding how does the operating business feed into the Bitcoin treasury strategy, and what are the trade-offs between having a lot of free cash flow in a successful business versus really being desperate and hungry and laser focused on Bitcoin.
Appreciate that perspective, Pierre. We are headed back to the Nakamoto stage again here at Bitcoin 2025. Nakamoto stage is next. We'll be right back here at the live desk after that. Stick with us.
So my case with you guys is that the last halving of Bitcoin is 2140, is that not? Wouldn't it be cool if we were all around for that? My message to you is that we may be the first generation who won't die. That has been a ridiculous statement from when time began, and this is the first time that has ever been possible. You can see my slides? Nope. Yes? Oh, there we go. Okay. Great. Okay. So what I've been doing over the past couple of years is I've been trying to take a qualitative idea of health and make it into a global competitive sport. Give something numbers, status, and ranking, and humans love to play that game. I've tried to be the world's first rejuvenation athlete. So you see here, I've posted, I have the world's best comprehensive biomarkers. I've posted 60 of the most predictive markers for longevity. And I do so in a way to invite others to try to replicate and beat my scores. But it's also a point to try to say, you can, in fact, quantify health. That we are transitioning from a moment of storytelling to a quantified framework. So one thing I've learned is that a unit of measurement is really helpful in longevity. Over the past couple of years, I've been measuring my speed of aging. So inside of each one of you is a clock that tells you how fast or how slow you're aging. If you're aging at a 1, that means 1 year of time passes, and you have 1 year of what you age 1 year. If you are 1.2, you're aging faster than time is passing, and if you're less than, you're slower than time is passing. So, consistent with trying to make this a global sport, I created the Rejuvenation Olympics, where people all around the world are competing to see who has the lowest speed of aging score. I'm currently number 1 in the world, 0.54 for my best 3 test score. This means that for every year that passes, I age roughly 6 months. So you can, in fact, meaningfully slow down your speed of aging through various things I'm going to talk to you about today. So you probably hear a lot of things about health. It probably seems all very confusing, and people disagree with everyone about everything. So what do? I'm going to help you understand there's one marker in particular that will help you achieve the majority of the health benefits, lowering your resting heart rate before bed, okay? So we're going to spend about 5 minutes on this. Everyone put your phones down, and let's focus on this, yeah? Okay. So my credentials in doing this is I scored 8 months of perfect sleep, okay? 100% sleep score for 8 months. I wanted to demonstrate you can, in fact, master the practice of sleep. And in doing this, I realized in all my health practices, that the most important marker determining whether or not I was going to have restful sleep was my resting heart rate before bed. So tonight, when you go to bed, lay down on your pillow, take a few deep breaths. If you have a wearable, pull it up and see your heart rate in real time. If not, just take your pulse for 6 seconds and then multiply that by 10. Let's say your resting heart rate is 60 beats per minute at your baseline. Your goal over the next month is to lower your resting heart rate by 10% to 54, okay? And the way you're going to do this is these things right here. So one of the biggest things that I've seen is the timing of my final meal of the day is perhaps the greatest influencer of my resting heart rate. So my final meal of the day now is around noon. I go to bed at 8:30. You don't need to do that if you simply start with 4 hours before your bedtime. So if your bedtime is 10 p.m., finish eating your final meal of the day by 6 p.m. No snacks and no food after that. You'll notice that when you do that, your resting heart rate goes down because your body is almost finished digesting food, and it leaves metabolic capacity for your body to then sleep. You see here in these other things, alcohol, for example, increases your resting heart rate. Anxiety and stress and rumination, that's the biggest one. Okay, so if you master first, don't eat right before bed, 4 hours before. You want a wind down routine. So if you say again, your bedtime is 10 p.m., when 9 p.m. arrives, screens off, and you're in a wind down mode, calming your body and mind from the day's stress. So you know this from experience. When that moment of the day comes, you're stressed, you're tired, you're mad, you're anxious, you have all kinds of ambitious thoughts. That rumination will drive your heart rate up, which will lessen your sleep quality. Now, the reason why these things are so important is because when the resting heart rate is up, your sleep quality goes down. And when your sleep quality goes down, your mood goes down. Your want of bad foods goes up. So sleep triggers this cascade where you're not going to exercise, you're going to eat bad foods, you're going to put on weight, you're going to have mood imbalances. Sleep is the #1 best performance-enhancing drug in the world. Resting heart rate is the best predictor of your sleep quality. So to summarize health in one statement, if you lower your resting heart rate before bed, you will achieve the majority of the health benefits through all the other things you could do in life. Because it leads to high quality sleep, which then leads to more positive behavior. So I would encourage you to make that your single practice. It's also your accountability partner. So if before bed, you are looking at that pint of ice cream or the bag of chips or the candy, you realize that's going to drive up your heart rate and you're not going to do it. Okay, these are the things I would suggest. It is very counterintuitive in our culture today. I would suggest each one of you build your life around sleep. Okay? Again, this is what I've learned over 5 years of doing this, of having the best biomarkers of anybody in the world. Building your life around sleep is the best thing you can do to make more money in Bitcoin. You guys believe that? You will make more money in Bitcoin if you get sleep. And I know you don't believe, many of you don't believe that. You will. You will make better decisions. Your mood will be more stable. You will make better judgments. Okay? My nighttime erections are the length of the Titanic, the movie. Now, why would I share something like that? Because when I talk about sleep, the majority of you are like, yeah, whatever. Did you know if you don't get high quality sleep, you don't get nighttime boners? This is true for men and women. Did you know that nighttime erections, men and women, is one of the most important biomarkers for your health? It is psychological, cardiovascular, and your fitness. So as you age, this is again true for men and women, nighttime erections go down. It is a function of aging damage. So when I first started talking about this important marker, I had several friends, many of which are in Web3, were saying, Brian, I have no nighttime erections. And I said, how is your sleep? You know, I get 4 to 5 hours a night. That's what happens. When you don't get sleep, your body shuts down critical functions, including your sexual function. It also eliminates, you have NK cells in your body. These are cells that go out and survey for cancer. When you don't get high quality sleep, your body lowers searching for cancer by 73%. Your body stops looking for cancer. Okay? Also, when you get 4 hours of sleep at night, there's a response in your brain of an inflammatory protein that is equal to a traumatic brain injury. So I want to impress upon you that sleep is not just a productive thing that helps you make better decisions and have a stable mood. It also, if you don't get it, your body literally shuts down really important functions. So here, I'm just going to give you guys this. Pull out your phones, grab this QR code. This is what I eat on an ongoing basis. So the thing that distinguishes my endeavor is we have combed through the scientific evidence. We've used the philosophy to say every calorie has to fight for its life. Every single molecule that gets in my body. And we've said, what are the superfoods among superfoods? This is a great representation. So as you try to, so number 1 is lower your resting heart rate. 2 is have good nutrition and eat from this guide. This is probably the most evidence-based guide out there. Finally, I think we all know this. The most consequential thing happening in the world right now, of course, outside of Bitcoin, that's obvious. Second to Bitcoin is AI. AI is progressing at a speed that is unfathomable to our current minds. It is changing things beyond our ability to understand. As it does this, I want to put forward to you that as a species, we're going to be playing a new game. And whereas right now our games are primarily locked in on status, prestige, money, wealth, and power, the new game as a species is going to become how we stay alive individually and as a species. That's what Don't Die is. Don't Die is about individual health, but Don't Die really is trying to answer the fundamental question, what does a species do when you're giving birth to super intelligence? Don't die individually, don't kill each other, don't destroy the planet, align AI with Don't Die. That Don't Die is attempting to be the world's next major global ideology on par with democracy, capitalism, Christianity, Islam. It is meant to say, as a species, this is what we do. This moment can't be overstated in consequence. For centuries, for millennia before, you would say, death is inevitable, therefore, YOLO. I'm going to raise an army and conquer territories. I'm going to go to war. I'm going to be immortal in my professional accomplishments. I'm going to acquire wealth. I'm going to have children. This is the first moment in the history of the human race where somebody can say with a straight face, we may be the first generation who will not die. And that requires a fundamental revolution. Don't Die is the single thing that every human on this planet can agree to. Nobody wants to die right now. So in summary, I hope you guys are open to the idea that this moment is fundamentally different than any previous moment, that you practice these principles of Don't Die, starting with your resting heart rate. You will be more successful, you will be happier, you will be a better family member, better partner, better at your work if you prioritize sleep. And that if you do this together, we can map out a path of our potential that I think is unfathomable in our current minds. Thank you, be well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brian.
Is going to be far more intelligent, and I'm already seeing a lot of signs of it.
The tide of free speech has turned, and it's unstoppable. At Rumble, creators are unfiltered, uncensored, undeniably bold. Powered by our own cloud, we are completely independent. Through the Rumble Advertising Center, we're rewarding authentic voices. This is where crypto creators and communities who value freedom and authenticity belong.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk presented by Mara. I am Frank Corver, the political correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine, and I am joined by none other than Alex Thorne, head of firm-wide research for Galaxy Digital. Alex, I want to first start by congratulating you. I know Galaxy went public on the NASDAQ, was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, Frank.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, we're all very excited. It's been a long road. We were already public in Canada, but after a long road, we are now public on the NASDAQ GLXY. Thank you.
That's that.
Very
all right.
excited.
One of the early companies to hold a lot of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, right? Am I wrong
right.
about
No,
that?
that's right.
Okay. Yeah, good amount of Bitcoin on the balance sheet over there at Galaxy. I want to talk a little bit about the panel that you hosted earlier in the day. SBR. So we have federal level SBR. We're seeing states create SBRs. We were talking a little bit off camera about, maybe the federal government will look to the states, see what they're doing and how they're sort of establishing policy and maybe use that for some of the federal policy. Your thoughts on this?
I mean, the states are making progress. Obviously, you saw Texas. There's been, attempts in Arizona. You saw New Hampshire has done something here. There have been maybe a dozen around the country looking at ways to do it. It is fundamentally different, right? The U.S. government can print money. It has significantly more money. States have to manage a budget, an actual budget. I mean, can you imagine? But I do think, look, America was created as a federated federal republic. The idea was that states would be laboratories for new policies, and those that worked would sort of bubble to the surface and maybe be adopted by other states or the federal government. Those that don't would fade from existence. So I think it's interesting to see. It's exciting. I think, look, whether you're an allocator, a pension endowment, a portfolio manager, an individual investor, you cannot deny the performative benefit that Bitcoin allocation has given you, and I don't see why a state is different.
Okay. From a policy angle, I know that you're a bit of a policy wonk when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto more broadly. What else should we be paying attention to right now?
Well, I mean, obviously the SBR, we're going to talk about that at the federal level, but look, I mean, I think one of the existential crises for crypto and Bitcoin is everything related to the Bank Secrecy Act and trying attempts by a certain wing of politicians to apply Bank Secrecy Act requirements on non-custodial entities like wallet developers, non-custodial wallets themselves, software developers, smart contracts on other networks, where they fundamentally have no capability of knowing their customer and complying with those rules. And I think those efforts are largely a backdoor attempt at banning crypto, right? And banning self-custody of Bitcoin, which of course is at the core of its value proposition. Those continue to bubble up. You saw that bubbling up during the stablecoin back and forth and debates in the Senate, and we expect the Senate to start voting and really moving that stablecoin bill this upcoming week, I guess I should say next week, after they get back from the Memorial Day recess. And again, that was an issue in here with a specific cohort of Democrats in particular pushing to add these anti-DeFi, anti-non-custodial provisions. It's been an ongoing issue. Obviously, Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, has been promoting this. This is not going away. This is a constant battle, and look, I mean, this is one of the few where the rest of crypto and Bitcoiners are in the same boat, right? Yeah. Because it's all about non-custodial technology, not holding software developers to the same standards as banks when it comes to regulation, which is obviously insane. Yep. It's also totally unenforceable. That's one that keeps bubbling up that Bitcoiners need to watch out for, right? I mean, I think as long as you can self-custody your Bitcoin, it doesn't really matter who owns it, whether it's governments or adversaries or whomever, you always have the ability to take that Bitcoin, take those keys, do with it what you want, store it under your mattress, on your cold card, wherever, and that is the core, that's to me like the core differentiator about Bitcoin, and that is always constantly under threat. It continues to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think, not only holding your private keys, but maybe the ability to use a mixer as well. What Alex was referencing there was, of course, the Samurai trial, which I've been covering personally, as well as the Tornado Cash trial. But, ladies and gentlemen, we do have to kick it back over to the Nakamoto stage, where our former host here, Pete Rizzo, will be speaking with the first Bitcoiner to ever go to the moon. Yes, you heard that correctly, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going back to the Nakamoto stage. We'll be right back here at Bitcoin 25 after that.
Both poles of the north and south poles of planet Earth. And he's also he's the first Bitcoin billionaire in space and one of 10 billionaires to go to space. So welcome, Shun.
Oh, nice to be here. Thank you.
All right, round of applause. So let's start. You went to space. How was space?
Space was great. I already read a lot about space, all my life, and I just go there for verification. So don't trust or verify. So I verified space like some of space like what I used to hear about, and some of the difference, and that was great.
So what inspired you to go to space?
I just heard about too many of them over time, and I'm eager to go verify what I heard about.
How many people here would go to space? Maybe a show of hands. How many people want to go to space? Okay, a few people. I sympathize with the people who don't want to go to space. I don't want to go to space. So what was
We actually have an option over there by Blue Origin.
What did you say?
We have an option there by Blue Origin.
Oh, right, yes, there is the Blue Origin spacecraft if you want to experience a space flight in the deep. What was your biggest concern about flying to space, and then what was your training like? How much training and preparation did you have to do for your trip?
When talking about space travel, I think the most important thing is the big difference between Blue Origin, what they do, and the SpaceX and other people, because there's two kind of spacecraft, space flights are very different. One we call it a suborbital flight, the other one is orbital flight. The basic energy used for orbital space flight is 100 times more than suborbital flight. So what Blue Origin doing suborbital flight, you probably heard about the news, Katie, last month. They only spend 75 seconds in space, and the entire space flight lasts 11 minutes.
So Katy Perry was in space for 11 minutes.
Yes.
And you were in space for 3 days, was it?
Yes. That's also the difference of price you're gonna pay for the flight. I cannot share with you about this, but what I heard randomly, you probably can ask Blue Origin what it's gonna cost for that flight. It's probably also, 100 times the energy cost difference. But anyway, this is a big difference. It's like, how to compare it? It's like fly airplanes to fly on Blue Origin. It's kind of different.
So you did the more difficult trip to space.
Yes. So basically, we spent 2 months, more than 2 months, maybe 3 months in training in total over a year, 14 months of period. We go through the same training like a professional astronaut. The only difference, we pay ourselves, and professional astronauts, NASA or ESA, there's respective countries pay for that. So we call it a private space flight. We call that professional astronauts is I'm not sure what kind of word to use, a traditional space flight, or ours is kind of a newer private commercial space flight. That's a difference. But we go through the same training process.
So something else that is interesting about this trip is that you funded the trip with Bitcoin. Can you talk a little bit about that? There's a lot of people here who don't want to spend Bitcoin, and maybe they don't want to spend Bitcoin to go to space. You spent Bitcoin to go to space. Can you talk about why you wanted to spend Bitcoin to go to space?
I think you cannot just stack that for no reason. Bitcoin is it can help humanity, and I think the space is one of the next big thing. When people talk about Bitcoin, crypto, people talk about AI, space industry is it's like all this, it's being developed pretty fast. It's growing. Since about 10 years ago, SpaceX started to recover boosters. We can see the entire space industry is growing at incredible pace. So I think this is probably the next industry. If you create what the future be like, you should pay attention to it.
How many people here would you sell your Bitcoin to go to space? Show of hands. Show of hands. We've got a couple people here. So do you think it was it worth it to go to space, to do that?
It's very well worth that, because eventually human have to be, like Elon says, human has to be multiplanetary. We cannot stuck here. We've seen a lot of people talking about the environment, but the ultimate solution for environment here back on Earth, because you cannot stop the development of human society. Human society development are always exponential, but the resource on the Earth is limited. So eventually we have to looking for resources, energies outside this Earth. And spaceflight technologies is something human must have. If we cannot obtain this technology, and soon we'll see the human society development with cheese will stop.
So would you say that space is your full-time career now? That's your pursuit? That is what you want to do with the rest of your life, is to take humanity to space?
Like when I was young, I was very interested in computers, programming. That's because computer programming was new. And later, 2011, as you said, I got into Bitcoin. Basically, the first day I first heard about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was excited, Bitcoin new technology. And now we already seen Bitcoin here for 15 years, and I have to say, it's no longer new. And I'm actually looking for the next adventure. That's why.
So you talked a little bit about humans need to become interplanetary. We talked about Bitcoin's role as money, potentially between planets. You have some thoughts about Bitcoin and whether the technology can be used between planets. If, say, on the moon, can they spend Bitcoin? Will there be a Bitcoin economy on the moon? Will there be a Bitcoin economy on Mars?
That's because when you have 10 people on Mars, you don't need money. That's actually a good thing. If you're one of the first people on Mars, you can basically spend all your money for that trip, and once you're on Mars, you don't have to worry about money anymore because you only have 10 people. But as the society on Mars, as the community grow, when you have 1,000 people on Mars, you probably start to need to think about money. How do you buy stuff on Mars? How do you pay for services on Mars? For that, you need money. I hope, here in the US, we use dollars. And in Europe, we use euros. And what kind of money are we going to use on Mars? That's the question.
The Mars, maybe.
Yeah, maybe if Elon, leads the project, probably use Dogecoin. But do you want to use the Dogecoin on Mars? Other than local Martian money, you also need the system for interplanetary settlement. For that role, today we still use dollars, but can we find another better way for this purpose, for interplanetary settlement?
What are the technical limitations that you see for Bitcoin being used for payments in space?
I think Bitcoin have a lot of potential for this.
But you think the limitations are, right, data can only travel so far, right? If I am mining on the moon and someone is mining here, it's not possible for them to exchange blocks.
It's possible, but you probably enjoy a high offer rate. The round trip light time between the Earth and Moon is about 2.6 seconds. And, the average time between two Bitcoin blocks is 600 seconds. That means normally if a majority of hash rate on the Earth, then you mine on Moon that you have maybe offer rate of 0.5%. That makes you less competitive to those miners on Moon. Right. But we replace the Moon with Mars. That's render the closest distance between Mars and Moon is 4 minutes light time. But if I'm not lucky, Mars on the other side across the sun, then it could be up to 45 minutes. That makes mining Bitcoin on Mars completely impossible.
Are you interested in working on these challenges? Have you thought about how should people here solve this? Because it sounds like you're saying we can't send a Bitcoin payment from Earth to Mars or from Earth to the moon, and so maybe Bitcoin can't scale to be an interplanetary money.
I think it's like a quantum computer. It's something with upgrade the Bitcoin network that can be achieved, but we need to convince those Bitcoin core developers.
So how would you recommend that we think about this problem? Should we be working on this?
It's actually not just about Bitcoin. One, the shift of humanity from Earth-based civilization to multi-planetary civilization, it will involve the whole society to get prepared for this. I must say it's probably one of the biggest shift of human society. Such like, how for those people living on Mars, how do you, receive, every year we receive a new generation iPhone. For those people living on Mars, how they can, I think the first decades when people start their community on Mars, they probably won't have the industry chain enough to support to manufacture something like iPhone, as like an iPhone Institute on Mars. They probably have to wait every 26 months when Mars and Earth sync up again. So their new generation iPhone deliver from the Earth. So that means after you receive your new generation iPhone, brand new, every 26 months, you find there's no servers on Mars from Apple. You cannot even activate it. A lot of this challenge. That means that every single company, major technical company, other kind of company, they have to get prepared for this, the biggest evolution of the humankind.
So this is a Bitcoin conference. There are some Bitcoin maximalists who think that Bitcoin will be the currency of Earth. But maybe, as you said, maybe you'll need some interplanetary settlement, that maybe there's a legitimate role for other cryptocurrencies for other planets. Maybe Mars would have its own cryptocurrency. Maybe the moon would have its own cryptocurrency. What do you think about that?
Yes, it's possible that Mars have one currency and Moon has currency, but eventually you need one currency for the settlement between Mars and Moon. That's what we are talking about. I hope this interplanetary settlement is achieved by Bitcoin, not other coins.
So you think maybe we should work on how to solve that problem?
I think the most Bitcoin core developers and the general public haven't recognized the issue yet. Just like Apple hasn't set up a server on Mars yet, but when the time comes, but for Bitcoin it's a little bit different because from our experience of Segwit activation, Bitcoin scaling, we know it takes a long time. Maybe we can start to think about that because it's going to take a long time.
So there were a lot of people who wanted to see you make a Bitcoin transaction in space, to send a payment when you were up in the space shuttle. What was the reason you didn't make the payment? Is it not possible, or did you were just enjoying being in space?
Nobody asked me. Nobody, because payment, you have to pay from one person to another. But I must say, I did carry the Bitcoin little holder. You probably see the photos on X. But yeah, there's some Bitcoin stuff. But I didn't make a payment because we only have 4 people up there. I don't have to pay for my, colleague. But yeah, but we do have internet. I think future flyers, future space travelers, once they will have a sizable community up there, they have a reason to make a payment. They will make a payment.
So we're talking about the future of Bitcoin. Maybe there will be problems with interplanetary Bitcoin. Are there other ways that you think Bitcoin could fail or not achieve its success? You've been around, you've been mining for 15 years. What do you think about the future of Bitcoin?
I don't want to think that way. I think the blockchain technology is the best technology for, for system for payment. So if Bitcoin fail, I hope it's because the blockchain technology fails, not because the Bitcoin itself fails and replaced by Dogecoin, replaced by Ethereum, or replaced by other things.
There's a lot of governments here, and they are talking about mining. They want to mine. So it came out this week that Pakistan is mining, Bhutan is mining, Nepal is mining. What do you think about governments mining Bitcoin? Is this good for Bitcoin?
Everyone can mine Bitcoin. Everyone free to mine Bitcoin. So long the government they do not forbid other people.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk presented by Mara. I am Frank Corva, the political correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine, and I'm joined by none other than the one and only Scott Lee, the event producer for this incredible event. He's also leading the charge with all things AV and all things UFO as well. Speaking of UFOs, Scott, tell us a little bit about what it's like to get something like this together, to get these big fixtures we have like UFOs, the skull of Satoshi, lots of exciting stuff happening here. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I'm in this unique position of getting to take a designer's vision of the most unusual things you can imagine, and we had lots of different ideas on paper, but getting to see them walked out and getting to be the one that presents these ideas to the teams that fabricate these, like, the UFO, this is like a multi-month build just to get to get the skins right and to get the colors right and all this stuff is a very, very intricate process. And just being the hub for that between the creative designers and the fabricators and the production companies that we partner with to make these things come to life, it's definitely a labor of love, but it is definitely a labor. And so, what are we, like 9 months, I think, for us to put this together from the time we really started diving into the rudimentary, how are we going to do this and some of the what we're going to do, but definitely. Yeah, it takes a team. It's definitely I couldn't even explain to you what.
Can I ask you one quick question, if you don't mind, though? I know we're going to cut over to the skull of Satoshi. I want to show people who might not know it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a scoop for us, or if you could share anything about how you got
the skull of Satoshi. Oh man, I like to tell people that we captured the flag. Like that is kind of a little game of that.
Love it.
I think we're going to find out a little bit more about that Thursday.
Okay.
I think we have a plan to present why the skull of Satoshi made it here.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting story, not one that I want to give the full detail on.
Okay. You heard it here first, an announcement of an announcement, folks.
That's right.
Appreciate it, but I didn't want to take you away from what you were saying before. Let's go back to that. So just more generally speaking, beyond the UFO, the 9 months it takes to get all this together, the full year, you were telling me off camera, you're going to get started with planning next year's event right after this. Let's talk a little bit about what that process looks like.
Yeah, right out of the gate. I think in June we'll start receiving proposals for new ideas. Because we have so much involvement from our partners and sponsors, we really want to get out in front of what is, what you see what we did, and before the dust even settles, we want to figure out, well, what's the next best thing? How do we top this? And it's a real challenge for us to think, well, how do we get bigger? How do we get better? And it's like, moving from Nashville to Vegas, there's this automatic raising of the dynamic a little bit, and also a challenge to how do you present this what is really a nascent industry in the real big scheme of things on a platform like Vegas. How do you bring Vegas alive and activate in Vegas in a way that you can be heard over the noise of Vegas?
Yeah, we are shortly being heard. I think we have upwards of 75,000 people tuning into the live stream, so we want to say thank you to everybody listening. But I also want to get to one thing. You talked about this as a labor of love. I know how much of your heart you put into this. What means the most to you when you see this come together? What is it that really resonates with you most, Scott? That's all right, buddy. Yeah, you're good.
It's you, man. It's you. It is. It's you, and it's Spencer, and it's the producers that I work with, and the team. You know, we're real. Like these are real people that care. They're Bitcoiners in a lot of cases. In most of the case, and I care deeply for all the people that I work with. They pour their hearts and souls into this. Like, you know, it really is. It's 10 months of just grinding and lots of late nights and weekends put into this. And I am surrounded with aces. You know, like everywhere I look, I've got A players doing the things that they do. I don't even know what everybody does in our company. It's so deep. But everybody that I contact, everybody I'm in contact with, are working at a really high level in a way that you don't see consistently with other companies, and it has to be that way. And that's why, like, when you come here, it's like it feels almost effortless. It feels like, I mean, you know, in about 100 hours. So last Friday, we watched the trucks from the last show roll out of here. We got it on time lapse. I hope you guys get to see it. But they walk out of here. We start, and all of this whole city gets built. It's like building this 30,000 person city in about 100 hours. And so it's nonstop. It is a grind. And so it is not for the weak. It is not for people who are not committed to it.
Yeah.
And,
also not for those who are not team players. I think that's really one thing to highlight there. Scott, we're going to keep you on here for a second. We're going to be right back with Scott Lee, the event producer here. We're going to cut to commercial. Stick with us here at Bitcoin 2025. We'll be right back here from the live desk.
$100 billion. That's how much custodial Bitcoin-backed lenders lost in 2022 alone. We decided to build a better solution, one that doesn't require you to give up self-custody, Lava Loans. Lava Loans is a non-custodial loan product that gives you cryptographic proof, not just legal or reputational assurances that your collateral is safe. Lava is the most secure way to borrow against Bitcoin. Try us out today.
Satoshi released Bitcoin. The world was forever changed. No one realized it.
This is the once-in-a-century opportunity.
And this is just the beginning.
Bitcoin is like digital gold.
So I view Bitcoin in line with the next evolution of humans engineering a better world.
I think the story of the past few years is Bitcoin going from a niche interest into a respectable global macro asset.
Bitcoin Policy Institute has become a thought leader.
What is the key to progress? Is it more machines? More money? More buildings? Or are those just the outcomes? What if progress relies on having purpose?
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk, presented by Mara. We're here at Bitcoin 2025. Vibes are high. I'm Frank Corva, the political correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine, and I'm joined by none other than Aaron Von Weirdum, the editor-in-chief of this here Bitcoin Magazine print issue, as well as the Bitcoin Magazine website. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you.
How's it going?
We're back.
Yeah, he's
Nice.
over here from
Vegas, baby.
Transatlantic flight all the way over from the Netherlands. Aaron, tell us a little bit about what it was like to get this issue together, especially an issue with Ross Ulbricht on the cover.
Yeah, I mean, Ross was freed earlier this year, obviously, and that for us, you know, we immediately knew that the topic for the next magazine had to be the freedom issue, right? Bitcoin is freedom money. It allows anyone to pay anyone else anywhere in the world for anything they want. And, you know, Ross has sort of become a symbol for that for me. You know, obviously, you know, what Ross enabled was kind of a radical form of, you know, using Bitcoin as a freedom tool.
Are you saying the senators aren't talking about what Ross was doing on stage?
I don't think they're highlighting it very much. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough.
So so we got Ross on the cover, but it's a cool concept because it has this double cover idea. On the other end, we have MIA, the singer, who was a big proponent of freeing Julian Assange, for example, who's also into freedom tech and that kind of stuff. So we have a long interview with her. So one side of the magazine is completely about Ross, like all the stories about Ross getting free, what went wrong during the trial, because there were a lot of issues with that. And then on the other side, you know, you can turn it around. You have a whole new magazine, Frank.
That's it, yeah. 2 magazines for the price of 1. You heard it here first. Aaron Von Weirdum. We're cutting back to the Nakamoto stage. We're about to hear about how we're building the future of financial products in America on Bitcoin. Headed over to Nakamoto. Stick with us here at Bitcoin 2025. We'll be right back at the live desk after this.
This event is just such a fantastic gathering of the community. On the topic of flows, I guess my message to all of you, and I think something that Mike and Justin will also be very familiar with, is that the game has changed in 2025. We're entering a new chapter in 2025 with the change in the regulatory circumstances in the US. Huge swaths of traditional investors can participate in this asset class, in Bitcoin, for the first time. So UTXO put out, a great firm put out a report on this, putting some numbers to that. But I think something that's sometimes hard for people to fathom is just how massive the opportunity is. At Bitwise, we serve a lot of wealth managers, for instance. And in the US, wealth managers manage between $30 and $60 trillion. And if wealth managers wind up allocating 1% to the space on behalf of their clients, helping their clients access the opportunities here, that's hundreds of billions of dollars. So the doors have opened to a lot of traditional allocators in 2025. We do thousands of meetings with those investors to help them understand and access the opportunities, and we've never been more excited.
And you're coming out with products too, because they're looking at their overall allocation and they're saying, listen, 60-40 portfolios are antiquated, especially in the Bitcoin revolution era. And so for you guys, what kind of percentage are you talking about in allocation for those wealth advisors to really kind of diversify their portfolio, get on an efficient frontier?
You know, that's a fascinating topic. Everyone remembers sort of the old refrain of get off zero. Everyone's familiar with the idea of 1%. I see some of my colleagues in the audience here who work with advisors, and I think that what we're seeing is the conversation is moving to 2 to 5%. I think that more and more traditional allocators are wondering how to position for the future. They're thinking about equities, they're thinking about fixed income, they're thinking about alternatives, and they're thinking about crypto and Bitcoin. And they're seeing an increased role for that in portfolios. So I don't think that we're going to end at a 1% allocation. I think we're going to end in a world where traditional investors have much more than 1% allocated. And right now, the conversation that we hear is 2 to 5%.
Awesome. And I think I'm going to pass it off to Mike, because Mike's got great insight, right? So Mike and BitGo, they custody ETFs, but also they work on with Bitcoin treasury companies. So he's got great insights on the financial products that are going sort of into the traditional realms, but also the non-traditional realms for adoption of Bitcoin. So Mike, what kind of financial products can we expect to see come out linked to Bitcoin that you guys are help servicing across all the different verticals?
Well, thank you. So I run a company called BitGo. We've been doing this since 2013. Started out with just how do you secure the asset? You know, the conversations that have evolved in the last decade just keep changing for the better. And this year, as Hunter said, we had a step function forward as a result of the administration finally being willing to embrace what we're doing. Before, they've been really fighting us and resisting it. And then now, they're more like, hey, how do we make this better for everyone? So this is helping tremendously. Suddenly, it makes it so that any money manager in the world, you know, any financial person in the world, knows that they can touch digital assets, they can touch Bitcoin in particular, and it's not going to be a hit on their reputation. This is like something that they can do, and they're not going to get in trouble for it. That is a huge unlock. It's hard to actually, I think, quantify how big that is. So in terms of our clients, I think we got over 4,000 institutional clients at BitGo today. We have over $100 billion in assets under custody. You know, we help a lot of people that want to do the custody on their own. Now, by the way, I'm still a big believer in self-custody. For all of you self-custody fans out there, we absolutely need that to grow. But when you have institutions holding money, it has to be done with a higher bar. That is, you can't have institutions where one guy holds the ledger, holds the key, you know, in his drawer. Instead, you know, we use banks, we use, you know, regulated entities, et cetera. So we run a bunch of custodians around the world. So the types of clients that we have, you know, venture funds have been here for a while, but increasingly we've got other types of asset managers that are also wanting to get their allocation. And if you just take a look at it from high risk to less risk, we just keep moving more towards the conservative side. A couple of years ago, we started to see endowments and some of the pension funds come in. That's the area that I think is really going to come in now. These guys, when they make investments, it is very deliberate. They come up with a thesis, they study it, they run it by all of their counterparties on the investment council, and then, you know, they get it through committee and committee. And finally, they take moves. So anyway, we are moving along that spectrum, and it's all for the good, mostly Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think one of the most unique things, and this is why Justin could come in and kind of talk about it, and WBTC is wrapped Bitcoin. And so Justin works with Mike and his group at BitGo for multi-jurisdiction. So I just want to preface with what is WBTC so the audience can know, and we can kind of peel back the onions from there on how it's so unique and how it's going to help the entire ecosystem.
Yes, definitely. First of all, you cannot stay your Bitcoin naked, right? You need to, you know, wrap it. So first of all, I think wrap Bitcoin is a way to get your Bitcoin into smart contract platform. So, right, we all know like Ethereum, you know, Solana, Tron, like all the major smart contract platform is the place you can actually use your Bitcoin as collateral to borrow like stablecoin, to borrow ETH, you know, other major cryptocurrency token. And also, of course, generate yield on the Bitcoin you are holding, right? Because Bitcoin is a proof of work network, there's no way for you to generate any yield on the Bitcoin you have. But once you wrap the Bitcoin and get into the smart contract platform, you will get yield for others to borrow the Bitcoin from you. And also at the same time, you can do more with your Bitcoin, right? You can do anything a smart contract network let you do, and also you can interact with all the DeFi application, DApps, make payment, make movements anytime actually around the Bitcoin network. So that's, I think, I will see WBTC as a gateway. You can get through into the smart contract platform with all your Bitcoin. And also, of course, I think WBTC introduced a very important market standard proof of reserve system. So any transaction you can see on the blockchain, and all the reserve addresses is available on the blockchain, all fully cold storage, Bitcoin. So it's safe and transparent, and at the same time it's smart. So that will be the smart right Bitcoin.
And
Can I just add a little bit? It's a stable coin for Bitcoins, right? So just like stable coins of dollars make dollars usable within smart contracts and within DeFi, wrap Bitcoin does the same thing for Bitcoin. All of a sudden, you can use it all kinds of things everywhere. And one other thing that's interesting, it's actually now a global product. So we switched it out to have custody that's split between the US, Singapore, and Hong Kong late last year. So it's the largest stablecoin of Bitcoin and the most broadly used in DeFi.
So that enables the scalability, right?
Yeah, I mean, what makes a good stablecoin, whether you're talking about dollars or Bitcoin, it's the liquidity that you have on the markets around the world, right? The fact that you can use it at every exchange is actually the main benefit of it. And then, so how do you get that? Well, obviously there has to be confidence in how it's held and how it's stored so that everybody can use it, and know that they can trust it.
Yes, I want to also add a little bit. For example, the liquidity is the key. So, for example, right now, if you hold naked Bitcoin, right, you need to deposit into the exchange, and you need to wait like 6 confirmation to go through. It's like an hour or so, and you can start to sell your Bitcoin, right? So sell, buy Bitcoin, withdraw, it's all take like an hour to do so. But if you just do it on Wrap Bitcoin, right now the main network is on Ethereum. We are expand on Tron, Solana network. You can do it instantly. Actually, today order book, you can do $100 million worth of the Bitcoin sell and worth the Bitcoin buy with I think around 1 to 2 bips. 1 to 2%. So basically, you can buy and sell the Bitcoin instantly on Ethereum network.
But here, you heard it first, for a limited time offer, the next 10 minutes, you can get 1 to 2 bips charged, and then it's going to go back.
Yes.
So this is great because we're talking about the different types of products out there, and you've got TradFi, you've got DeFi, and I think Hunter's got a great product that came out that shows kind of the marrying of the two. It's own B, and it owns the Bitcoin treasury companies, and so he's probably got a unique insight on why institutions kind of want access to the Bitcoin treasuries companies through the ETF wrapper. And then, so can you opine on that when you're talking to institutions about the Bitcoin treasury companies and kind of their role in the ecosystem? And then also talk about, because I think it's beneficial here, how are these institutions valuing Bitcoin? Because we've seen it before where they wouldn't touch it, and now they're dipping their toes. So what was the light switch? So it's kind of a twofer for you.
Sure. Well, I think it's top of mind for everyone that corporations are buying Bitcoin. It's an extraordinary theme of this year. As of the first quarter of this year, 79 publicly traded companies had put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, over 600,000 Bitcoin, and there's only 21 million Bitcoin. It's a lot of Bitcoin. People, for a long time, have wanted to own Bitcoin because they view it as potentially a superior store of value of their wealth, their savings over time versus fiat currencies. Well, corporations have $5 trillion of cash and treasuries themselves, and they also want to transport that cash and those reserves over time. So what we're seeing is corporations having the same thought that individuals have been having for 15 years, which is maybe I should store some of that value in Bitcoin. And that's why we're seeing, over 80 companies already this year holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. There are a ton of exciting endeavors to this end. The product that Kevin mentioned, the ticker is OwnB, as in Own Bitcoin, OWNB, and it's an ETF of all of these companies that have more than 1,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So for an investor who says, I like this thesis, but I don't want to be picking the specific companies that are undertaking it, I want to own an index of them, we've created a product for that, the Bitcoin Standard Corporations ETF, which is OwnB. And I think people are very excited about the idea that corporations can put themselves in a position of strength and advantage by adopting this strategy on their balance sheet. And I think we'll see more and more. I think we'll see a ton of companies adopting this, and hundreds of thousands more of Bitcoin being put onto balance sheets. So, yeah, please.
And so, Mike, a thing in the past for Bitcoin used to be not your keys, not your coin. And you've got a platform that I think really addresses that and has kind of squashed that notion that if it's, you know, not your keys, not your coin, you know, there's safe and secure ways to actually create product to hold Bitcoin. So can you talk about how we've transitioned from this not your keys, not your coin to actually the democratization of access?
Well, I'm not sure I quite agree with the statement. I actually think not your keys, not your coins is still very important today. This is why we have a full complement of both self-custody solutions as well as, you know, institutionally is where we do most of our business, and that's where we take over custody. When you take custody, you know, there's a lot of things you got to do. It's like, who's the management team? What's the balance sheet? You know, what's the SOC audit? You know, what are the controls? Where do you store the keys? What's the technology? What's the regulatory? This is a lot of questions that go into it, and so we solve that. But we start with this, you know, 2 out of 3 threshold signature platform. And originally it was multi-sig only. That was Bitcoin. We still use multi-sig on Bitcoin. It's absolutely the best way to store your Bitcoin. We also now support 2 out of 3 MPC on many, many other chains that don't support necessarily multi-sig natively. But when we take custody, we then are taking that same exact platform. We're taking ownership of the second 2 keys, and then we put it in custody and we put all the controls.